All right, welcome everybody. And my name is David Haas, and I'm going to be presenting today on staying safe from scams and fraud. And the reason why I decided to give this webinar is that I have recently, unfortunately, heard about a bunch of scams and fraud that have affected people. And I think it's always good to have the power of information and to learn about these scams and how you can stay safe. So a little bit about myself. I'm a certified financial planner, and I started Cereus Financial Advisors in 2015. But this is my second career. My first career was as an electrical engineer and software engineer. And I actually did a lot of work on internet protocols and devices. So I know a fair amount about how the internet works. That has some relationship to scams, unfortunately, but scams are actually much older than that. And one time in the early 90s when I was working on a device um, development on a device, and we had a test version in our lab, and I put a new version of software on there, and I forgot to enable protection, and we actually had people coming into that. It was dial-up at the time, and they were able to make phone calls out of it. I won't explain the details other than to tell you that in the 2 days until I noticed that this was happening, we ended up having a multi-thousand-dollar phone bill for the company I was working for, and I was very happy they didn't make me pay it, all because I made a silly mistake in not enabling protection. So um, it it is something that I have long experience with. Okay, whoops. So we're going to cover scams in general. We're going to talk about the human aspect of this problem. I want to tell you about common scams and frauds that I know about, and I have a whole list of them, but I'm sure there are others that I don't know about. What are the red flags to look for, and the things that you can do to stay safe? So first of all, scams and fraud are unfortunately a very human problem. And typically, a scammer is someone who gains our trust, and maybe not even a lot of trust, maybe just a little bit of trust, but anyway, some trust. Scammers almost always appeal to our emotions. So the most common emotions that they appeal to are greed or fraud. I'm sorry, greed or fear. So greed is they're offering us a way to maybe get wealthy or to um, take a shortcut to wealth. It's the same emotion that causes us to decide that the Powerball or the lottery is at $100 million, and we decide to go and buy a ticket. Our chances of winning are very low, but the greed makes us do it. And fear is also an emotion that's used very often. Um, it may be fear for ourselves to protect ourselves and not have us be a victim, or it may be fear about loved ones. Scammers are trying to manipulate you, and that's important to realize. If you end up getting scammed, unfortunately, you've been manipulated. And they're trying to force you to make mistakes. And they're forcing you to make mistakes typically by creating a sense of urgency. And sometimes by making you not trust the people who you should be trusting. So here are some headlines that I picked up very recent data. Here's a press release from the Federal Trade Commission that fraud losses are now $12.5 billion in 2024. I actually think that I don't necessarily trust that figure. I think it may be quite a bit higher than that, but this is what the Federal Trade Commission has measured. There's a publication called Dark Reading, and here's a headline from that. Industrial scale Asian scam centers expand globally. If you've been paying attention, there are scam factories in Cambodia and Myanmar that in some cases kidnap people who can speak English or speak other languages for the countries where they're making these scam calls or communications, and they're forcing people to work in essentially call center factories that are trying to scam people. And it's a huge business. It's an illegal business, but it's a huge business. And from the U.S. Department of Justice in Massachusetts, they have a headline recently that 13 individuals are charged for operating a transnational elder fraud network. So, unfortunately, they don't really catch enough of these people. So, according to the Pew Research Center, roughly 3/4 of Americans have experienced some kind of online scam or attack. And it's often stolen credit or debit cards. That's, this says online, but that's often not necessarily an online scam. You might be using your credit card at a merchant. It actually happened to me once with a car wash. After I went to the car wash, and I was pretty sure it was the car wash that I used the credit card, it started being used for fraudulent activity. So there are a lot of ways of being scammed here, and unfortunately, most people have had some kind of scam performed on them. It's a human problem. Scammers succeed because they make us believe them. Sometimes we're lonely, we're tired, and some of these things make us let down our guard. There's a tremendous amount of information about us on the internet. And so scammers might know information about us already. They might know our social security numbers, our dates of birth, who our family is, where you went to college, where you went to high school, who your neighbors are. How do they find this information out? They find it because you might have provided this information on social media. Maybe it wasn't you, though. Maybe it was your kids or your grandkids who provided information on social media. Maybe it was your neighbors who provided that information. Altogether, you have to assume that people you don't know may know all about you. We also might be less familiar with technology than the scammer, or maybe the process. And I'll explain about some bank scams that really are because we're not knowledgeable about the process, or we might not know that the IRS would never give us a call. So we believe the person on the phone are who they say they are. Sometimes when people are older, they have cognitive decline. This may not, I'm not necessarily talking about Alzheimer's disease or a complete decline of cognitive ability, but it's pretty much proven that as you get older, your cognitive abilities do decline. And then scammers, their costs to operate are extremely low, especially when we talk about the initial approach. So, they'll send millions and millions of emails, scam emails out, and it costs them almost nothing. Phone calls are very, very low cost. The costs occur once you answer, if it's a human being on the other end, and if it's some kind of AI or recording on the other end, there aren't even very much cost there. So they don't need a very high hit rate in order to be successful, and they can keep trying. So I'm going to talk about a few particular scams, and I have to tell you right off the bat that these are scams that occurred to people I know. So in some cases, a few clients, in some cases, friends, relatives. So I have firsthand experience about that. Here, the first one I'm going to talk about is the bank fraud scam. So you might get a text, an email, a phone call saying that your account has been compromised. And they're going to give you a phone number to call in the case of a text or an email, or, it'll just be somebody on the phone that says, your bank card was used for such and such, and it'll be something that you have never heard of. Either way, they convince you on the phone that your account's compromised. And they may ask you to verify information like your social security number or address. Maybe they know that already and they're just asking you to verify it. Um, they might send you a PIN and ask you to read it so you verify who you are, but they don't necessarily, you haven't necessarily verified who they are. So your mistake here is that you have fear. You have fear that your account's compromised and you want to do something about it. And you believe the person on the phone or you believe the text. You call the number instead of looking it up for yourself, or you don't necessarily hang up and call the bank or the financial institution yourself and in this case, you could look up the correct phone number to call the institution. So, this happened to somebody I know, and this person was on a flight where their phone was turned off, a long flight, and they came into the airport, turned the phone on, and they're getting a text that the credit card or I think it was the bank account in this case was compromised. Um, and this person believed it and talked to this person, gave them all kinds of information, and their bank account then became compromised, and the person or the scammers were able to take money out of the bank account and transfer. In this case, the I believe the bank did stand behind them, and they didn't end up losing money, but you might, and some banks will not stand behind it because they say, well, you gave that information out. It's your problem. Here's another one, and this one can be terrible. It's sometimes called a romance scam, or they call it a pig butchering scam. So in this case, someone starts a relationship with you, and it's typically online, and it may start in an app that you're already part of, a social media app, a dating app. Um, the scammers will very often move that to a more private network. That could be WhatsApp, Discord, or there are other messaging apps that they'll use. Um, the trust, your trust for that person is built over weeks or months. If it's totally online, it may in fact not even be one person. It may be a series of people, because the people who are communicating with you are not who they say they are. They might send you pictures, they might send you videos, but those pictures or videos are not real. They might say, they're a 25-year-old mom of four, but that isn't necessarily true. At some point in time, after your trust is gained, this scammer is going to introduce some kind of money story. It could be a successful investment. Oh, I've made so much money on this Bitcoin scheme that that my cousin is got me in on. And they're appealing to your greed. It could be fear. Now you care about this person and they're telling you about a hardship that they might have. I'm going to lose my home. I'm going to be on the street and homeless because of this medical problem or whatever it might be. But whatever it is, you end up giving them money and you're giving them money willingly. Um, and of course, your mistake here is trusting somebody you don't know. And you 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 didn't verify the story. You may not be able to verify the story, but frankly, if it's somebody who you don't know personally, you've never met in person, um, you shouldn't be trusting them. So this happened to somebody I know. It's somebody who was not who's living in the U.S., a U.S. citizen, but wasn't born in the U.S. So they had a home country. It's somebody who's I think whose marriage was in difficulty, and I think what happened is this person was contacted by somebody who supposedly came from their home country, and um, this person trusted the uh, the scammer and appealed to this person's greed. And this was a Bitcoin trading scheme, and that person who was scammed, unfortunately, gave this person not just some money, but basically all their money, liquidated the retirement accounts, and gave this person all the money. And we're not talking about somebody who was stupid. The person who I know this happened to was not stupid at all. In other ways, somebody who had a job, who was very intelligent, and yet they were scammed out of their money. So you have to be on your guard, unfortunately. And this person came to me and said, "Oh, I'm going to make all this money. I need a financial advisor." And after I went into the story, I realized that, he couldn't get his money back, and he realized it too. And all I could do was refer him to law enforcement. So here's another one. Family in trouble. You're going to get a text or an email or a phone call that your family member is in trouble. They might know details. This often happens when traveling. So, your grandchild is on social media and is posting on their wonderful trip, their backpacking trip across Europe. They're on that trip. The scammer knows it too, unfortunately, and you get contacted about this person being in trouble, and um, the the scam occurs because they need money immediately. Maybe it's to get out of jail or a visa problem, whatever it is. It often uses gift cards or cryptocurrency, so you're almost never transferring the funds in a normal way, and the scammers are appealing to your fear. And whenever you get contacted like this, you really need to verify this. Um, it's very rare that somebody's going to be in trouble in such a way that the money transfer is going to immediately um, help them. Although it happens, my son lost his wallet in China and had had some serious problems and needed help in, getting a new credit card and getting some money. But I talked to him personally, so I knew it was him. This scam occurs when, you really haven't talked to somebody personally. However, unfortunately, now with AI, AI can impersonate people's voices. So you do need to be even more careful. And I'll talk in a little bit about a way to get around the AI issue. Here's yet another one. Tech support scam. I know a few people who are scammed this way, including people in my own family. So some kind of fake alert appears on your screen, or you receive a phone call, a text, an email, whatever it is, claiming that you have a computer problem and some kind of Microsoft problem. The people will often identify themselves as coming from Microsoft or Apple or whoever it is. And you're told to call a support number, and the person you reach will ask you to install some software on your computer that will help them diagnose the problem. That software will often give them control. They might try to steal your personal information. They might install software on your computer that allows them to steal information later. So they might end up um, being able to read your keystrokes. So they can steal your passwords at that point. They can steal your bank information, your credit cards, and they might do that over a period of time. So your mistake here is that Microsoft or Apple will never offer tech support in this way. Pop-ups on your screen can often be faked, and your computer might already have some malware installed on it because maybe you downloaded something, a game or something um, that installed malware. So you need to realize that um, if you need tech support on your computer, you're going to have to go to someplace, go to the Genius Bar, go to the computer store, ask your relatives who know more about computers than you do, and don't just trust the people who contact you. So here are some other scams that are out there. So a very common one now is employment scams. If you're looking for a job, you might have been looking for jobs on websites like Indeed, LinkedIn, there are other ones, and you get really excited because you get contacted with a job offer. Um, this is especially common if the job offers are work from home. You need to be very, very careful about anything that's unsolicited. If you've applied to a regular job, you might get contacted. You're typically contacted by phone, very rarely with a text from some number that you've never realized. So be careful. The employment scams, they're stealing your personal information. Sometimes they're actually asking you for money. Um, you have to buy this stuff and through us in order to start your job. So be careful about that. I'm sure many of us have gotten these calls or contacts from supposedly from law enforcement or the IRS threatening us with immediate arrest if we don't pay them money. That seems to be very common. There are fake charities. There are also semi-fraudulent calls from paid fundraisers. So, you get a call that's supposedly from the American Cancer Society um, asking you for a donation. My rule is to never, ever donate money to any charity with a phone call. the paid fundraisers often get most of the money that you're donating. Very little of it might go to the charity, and that's for something that's semi above board. And then they're totally fake charities. The totally fake charities often have to do with veterans, law enforcement. Unfortunately, often those are fake. Then there are fake online orders, supposedly misdelivered packages where they want to verify your address. Very rarely will your address need to be verified, especially if it's something you never ordered or didn't expect. Emails with fake DocuSign or Microsoft OneDrive documents. If you're sent a document and you don't actually expect that document, never click on the link. Don't click on links anyway. But especially if it's something that you don't expect. They're home repair scams. This one is not online at all. Somebody rings your doorbell and says, "We're in the neighborhood fixing your neighbor's roof, and we noticed your roof has problems. Uh, you know, if you pay us however much, we'll go up there and fix the problems right away." This is common. Unfortunately, it's almost always a scam. So be very wary. Fake loans or debt relief. And here's a new one that I just learned about, deed fraud. And this one is frightening. So this you're vulnerable to this if you own a property, particularly a property that you that maybe an investment property, not necessarily the house that you live in, but sometimes they could do it with a house you live in, and they steal your identity and they file what's called a quit claim deed. And that's apparently an easy way to transfer ownership in your property. And they're basically stealing your property out from under you. Then they can take out, maybe additional mortgages or actually sell the property to somebody right out from under you. Um, there are very few ways to avoid this, and the only one that I could find out about is that in some cases you can register with the county, town, state um, to notify you when anything happens on your property. So Mark in the chat just stated that you can do that for Bergen County. I've actually done that for my home in Bergen County. You want to look into that if you haven't done it. You want to be notified for any action on your property regarding the deed. So at least if something happens, you can fight it right away. So, what should you do if you were scammed? Well, if you lost money, in your bank, certainly call your bank or financial institution immediately. Look up the phone number, um, and call them, and they will help you. Um, they will investigate. They will definitely help you. Um, Certainly, if somebody uses your credit card, without your knowledge, you want to notify your bank or financial institution. But the great thing about credit cards are because of the way the laws are, if you notify them, you're not responsible for the loss. For banks, that's bank accounts, that's not necessarily true. And depending on the bank, some banks will basically say, you lost the money willingly, that's your problem. But at any rate, you want to call them immediately. You also want to change your passwords if you might have been compromised. What you especially don't want to do is use the same passwords for all of your accounts. You should have a unique password for every account. If you were scammed, you can report it to law enforcement. I would start with the local police. Bergen County has which is the county I'm in, has a cyber crimes unit. They will take the police report and hopefully help you. I was recently on grand jury duty, and there were some cybercrime cases, and so they do investigate and sometimes catch the perpetrators. There's also a website called ic3.gov, which is an Internet Crime Complaint Center. This is more of a uh, collection where they're looking at overall complaints. They're not necessarily investigating each one. There is a very helpful website called identitytheft.gov if your identity was stolen. And you should be learning from the error and share with others so it won't happen to them. It's very, very embarrassing. Um, and I hope, if this happens to you, you can sort of get over your embarrassment in order to make sure that other people are not victimized. So here are some recommendations to stay safe. Do not click on links in emails or texts, particularly unsolicited ones. Now, sometimes you're going to get an email link. They're verification emails. Um, there are notifications where they're sending you an email, with a link. Some of these are legitimate. I wish the institutions wouldn't do it that way, but be very, very, very cautious, particularly on unsolicited ones. And I already mentioned the files that get sent, the attachments, and it could be from somebody you know. There was one that was sent to me today from somebody who I know that I didn't expect. And I am not sure if it's legitimate or not. And I gave that person a call. I'm waiting for a call back. I'm not going to open that file until I talk to that person to make sure that it was legitimate. If you don't recognize a caller, don't share anything. Call the institution back using the number that's listed for them. Um, so for some of these family and trouble scams, get a family secret word or passphrase that everybody in your family is going to know. If you don't hear the passphrase or the secret word, then you know that it's not legitimate. This is very useful. And this could be very useful for the AI thing where AI might be able to impersonate you or impersonate your loved ones. So the secret word or passphrase, I think, is a great tip. Don't trust people you haven't met in real life. Sometimes even ones who you have met in real life. I have a scam example where somebody tried to scam my dad with an investment scheme, and that was in person. So, but certainly people who you haven't met in real life, even if you think you have a relationship with them, and you know things about them and they know things about you, be very wary. Always verify money transfers over the phone, Zoom, or in person. Um, you know, you never want to um, just take somebody's text or email at face value. And by the way, this is a very common scam for companies. I know that's a little off topic, but a company that deals with a vendor on a regular basis gets an email from the vendor saying our bank account has changed. Please change our bank account to whatever, new bank account it is. And the accounts payable person doesn't even think about it and just changes the account. The next time an invoice is paid, that goes to the scammer instead of to the company it's supposed to be paid. Super common. So be very wary. Never provide a password or passcode to anybody who calls you. Now, sometimes when you're calling them, they're going to have you verify using a passcode or password that they send to your phone. That might be okay, but if it's somebody who calls you, never share. Use a complex and separate password for every service or login. So, oh my God, that's difficult. And it absolutely is. So that gets with number 8. Use a password manager. Password manager is a great tool that will remember your passwords for you. So you only have to remember the password to the password manager. Um, I happen to use Dashlane, and I can tell you because I use separate passwords for everything. I think I have maybe 150 different passwords that Dashlane remembers for me. Everyone is different because Dashlane allows me to create a random password so I let Dashlane create the password for me for every service. And it's a wonderful time saver and it keeps me safe. A Bitwarden, 1Password, those are also great password managers. There are built-in ones in some of the browsers. I don't like those built-in ones because something like Dashlane works across devices. So my phone remembers the passwords, my computer remembers the passwords, my tablet remembers the passwords. Another important thing is to use multi-factor authentication, right? So when multi-factor authentication started, it was what is your mother's maiden name is another multi-factor authentication, and they'll ask you for that. That's very old-fashioned. That's information that people might know already about you. Then they started with the text to the phone numbers. But now you have authenticator applications. I happen to use Google Authenticator. Microsoft has one as well. It's an application on your smartphone, and there's a number for every service, and for everything that you have a login to. And when you try to log in, it's going to ask you for the number. You go to the Authenticator app, you look up the number, and you type it in. That is much safer than the phone. Unfortunately, your phone number can be stolen or your phone can be stolen. So the Authenticator app is the best way to do that. And also solves the problem of using separate complex passwords for every service or login. You should set up alerts on your credit card or bank accounts. I have those alerts. They text me every time my credit card is used. I think my bank doesn't support that for the account, but some banks might. Um, so that's helpful because if my credit card is stolen, I know it immediately because I get a text that it was used. You can freeze your credit with TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax. Those are the 3 big credit rating agencies. If your credit is frozen, then it cannot be used to open new accounts or to take out loans or get additional credit with anybody. So it's fairly easy to do this. You either have to open an account at the credit bureau, or you freeze. There's a special way of freezing, and then you get a password that you would use to unfreeze it. You don't need to pay for this. So they all have credit monitoring services that, they're trying to sell you the service. Don't do that. Just freeze the credit. You also want to check your credit report periodically. Usually you can do this through your bank. I have accounts at Chase and TD Bank, and both of them separately let me look at my credit report for free anytime I want. Be extra cautious with anyone who contacts you out of the blue. Already talked about this. Wrong number texts. Somebody texts you, right? And then It's actually a wrong number. You say, "Oh, I'm not Janice. This is a wrong number." And then they start talking to you. They're trying to befriend you. Don't fall for that. Uh, Look out for connection requests over social media where there's no obvious connection. I can't tell you how many LinkedIn requests I've gotten, usually from, I'm male and they know that. And it's some beautiful young lady who's trying to connect with me and is flattering me with the message, "Oh, I've been following you and your, your, uh, your posts are so insightful." Yeah, right. They're trying to create a relationship for a pig butchering scam. We talked about signing up for deed notifications with your county. Don't trust caller ID. Caller ID can be scammed. Your call ID says the IRS is calling you. That's not the IRS. Email addresses can be spoofed, so who it says it's from may not be who it's from. And above all, resist the sense of urgency. Slow down and evaluate as soon as we're talking about money. So, red flags, call or text from a bank telling you something is wrong, creating the fear. Reference to something which does not make sense, an unexpected package, an IRS call, toll violations where, maybe you haven't been driving, someone befriending you who you have no connection with and you have not met in person. Be wary. Any sense of urgency, anything that might trigger the greed or fear emotions in you. And I just want to, finish up here by talking about how we try to keep our clients safe at Cereus Financial. So we don't transfer funds without verifying by phone or in person. Hmm. With one of our custodians, the client can do their own transfers without us. In that case, they need to make sure that they've logged in properly and that there's multi-factor authentication. All of our computers and servers are encrypted. They are backed up daily with encrypted backups. So, that helps us keep us a little bit safer. We also have cybersecurity insurance in case of ransomware, but hopefully we won't have that problem. But anybody can have it, so we are insured for it. We use multi-factor authentication everywhere we can. We use complex passwords in the password manager. I mentioned that we're using Dashlane. We use advanced spam and phishing detection. Emails still come through, fake emails. We don't keep client data on personal computers. They're only on the company servers. And one important thing is if we get an unusual request from a client for money transfer, we're going to ask questions. We're going to say, okay, what are you going to do with this money? Why do you need it? And we're not trying to keep the money. It's not our money. What we're trying to do is make sure that our clients are not being scammed. So my takeaway is always be skeptical. Trust has to be earned, and even then, you want to verify. So I want to open it for questions, and um, if you want, you can either write the question in the chat at this point. I don't think do we have any questions?
David, I have a question. Hi, Pip.
Hi, Pip.
Hi, I'm in my car, but parked and pulled over. I wondered if you, thank you so much. It's very, very helpful just to hear it again. But do you have any feelings about Zelle and PayPal in particular, like using that do you feel that that's safe? That just in general, when you
Um,
Zelle people money now and that kind of stuff?
yeah, I use it myself, and it can be safe, but it's less fraud resistant than some other things. Uh, because with Zelle and PayPal, once the transfer occurs, you can't take it back, and the bank will not get your money back. So I do not believe that it's unsafe, and I don't use PayPal, but I do use Zelle. And go out to dinner with a bunch of people, and one person pays the bill, and then you Zelle everybody else. Sure, I think that's fine.
Hey David, can I share something with you? And just
Sure.
real quick. So I don't know about you all, but we're getting a lot of Apple charges on our bank accounts, credit cards, and they're fraudulent. It's $1.99 here, it's $7.99 there. And when you go to the bank and say, hey, we have fraud, you get a new card, they just keep reoccurring. And I'm not sure if that's happening to anyone else on the call, but that is very frustrating. It just seems like the banks, whatever they're doing, they can't prevent it. So I do agree what you said. You have to check your accounts regularly because you're going to have charges on there that aren't real.
So, Paul, you said it was Apple.
Apple, yes.
Most likely, those charges are coming from the Apple Store. So there's some apps that will charge you. It may very well be completely fraudulent, or it may just be that you didn't realize that, an app could charge you, and it's some kind of monthly charge.
Mm, yeah.
So you might want to look at it through the Apple Store rather than your bank.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. We've done work with Apple Store for, fixing a laptop or a screen or something like that, right? But
Well, I
still
meant the
it
App
seems like,
Store.
yeah. I'm gonna
Be-
check it out because I don't have Apple Music, my kids don't have it. We have Spotify. So I'm just saying these are like
oh, okay.
current charges that come up, and then we have to, whether it's my wife's account, my kid's account, or
Yeah.
my account, and we have to
I,
just keep constantly getting new cards.
yeah. I have very few apps that charge me, but I do use Apple iPhone, and I pay for extra storage for backup, and that's
Right.
like $1.99 a month. And
Correct. Yep.
I
Yep.
you know, I'm on the Duolingo app that I pay for once a year, and they charge me through Apple. So it may be something you signed up for and don't remember, or it may be just totally fraudulent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Paul, I'd also say, I don't know if you guys are using iPhones, but David just pointed out buying the extra cloud storage is one thing. If you guys watch Apple TV, that sneaks in there as well. And it's one problem that is not necessarily fraudulent is just proliferation of subscriptions. People
Yeah.
don't know that they've signed up for them, and it's these small charges that hit the credit card every month, and they may not be fraud. They're legitimate. It's just that, we run out of email storage space, so we've got to decide either to delete our emails, delete our photos on our phone or on our computer, or buy more cloud storage space. And
Right.
that can add up after a while.
And
And yeah.
admittedly, it's um, tough to keep track of, and there have been cases where there are these apps that do fraudulently charge you, and it's often very difficult to turn it off.
Mhm. One follow-up question or point. And I see these advertisements of Rocket Money or Rocket, and they can check your subscriptions and take them off. I'm sure that's not free, correct?
I'm actually not familiar with that, so
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good service or not. I can tell you that I'm hesitant to give my information to somebody who's going to supposedly do something for
Right.
me, because then they have my information.
Yes. Yeah. And then
Um,
and then you'll get a call from Rocket Mortgage. Can we refinance your loan?
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. So I'm a little bit hesitant. And there's an old saying with the internet. If you're not paying for something, you're the product.
Good point.
So
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you all.
I think Matt was asking, do I recommend the dashboard password manager instead of a series of different and complex passwords? And I do, although it's not instead of, it's both. It's just that the Dashlane password manager or a different password manager will keep track of those passwords and make it easier. Um, and do I recommend an authenticator app as a better solution than a text to the phone? Yes. Now, using the authenticator app is not necessarily always available. You have to look at the service or log in, what they have available. But if they have it available, it is better than a text to your phone.
Thank you, David. That was helpful.
So, okay. Anybody else have any questions or
David, I just want to comment that you mentioned the Microsoft 365 emails. I've noticed that in the last 2 or 3 months, they're just continuous. And the first time it happened, I came so close to clicking on something in there because we do have Microsoft 365. It looked totally legitimate. And I am extremely wary of clicking on anything, but this sort of got to me because it was something along the lines of my email was going to shut down because of some issue we were having, and I came so close to clicking, but I fortunately, to your point, I took a breath. I called our IT person and I said, "Is this legitimate?" before I click on it, and we figured out that it wasn't. And then I get them like at least once a week, some crazy email. So yeah, that whole thing of catching you off guard when you're just a little bit vulnerable or a little scared is, we really have to be so careful every single day. It's unfortunate, but this is the world we're living in.
yeah, it is unfortunate. And one thing I'll say is that you could, especially as a business, if it's your business, you could have better email fraud protection or protection on there that might catch most of those emails.
Yeah, we're
Uh,
trying.
there's an add-on called Microsoft Defender
Yeah,
for Microsoft 365, and there's some other ones. I think there's one called Proofpoint that's supposed to be even better. We're using Microsoft Defender, and
yeah,
they still, some of them still come through,
right.
but it does catch a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
David,
If I may, oh,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Um, I'm a realtor, and so my number's out there. I answer a lot of calls. But there's another kind of real estate thing that happens, and I know this firsthand, where on a lot of these sites, people will post a picture as if they were the owner, and that's another scam that goes on in the real estate industry of people thinking that they're, send money for this lease, this will hold the place kind of thing, and it's not. It's a complete scam because people are just taking pictures off Zillow or off the MLS even, and acting, which is why we say it's good to work with a realtor and not try to do everything yourself. But it's fraught with other possible things like that people need to be aware of. If it's too good to be true, just I had it happen I had a listing and I actually got a call like from California after those fires where people were desperate for housing. And I was like, and what somebody had done was they had taken part of my listing and posted it in California as a people didn't even know where it was. It was crazy, but just another like red flag.
Yeah, I've
Um,
heard of that one before, especially on listings on Craigslist or Facebook. People can say, "Oh, my home is for rent," and show you a picture, and it's all fraudulent. So good point. Good point. So
I'd like to throw out another example of a phone scam that I've observed happen at with my mother-in-law. So she's in her late 90s and uh, you know lives with caretakers. She has a landline, and she'll get a call. Grandma, it's your grandson. I'm in trouble. And they're waiting for her to offer a name. Oh, Thomas, is that you? Yes, it's me. They don't have a name. So be very careful when you pick up a phone call and somebody claims to be a relative of yours and they don't name themselves. Don't offer names, because then they'll have you hooked and they'll increase your sense of urgency and fear, and you'll feel you'll need to reply to it.
yeah, yep. Michelle has written in the chat about a hacker who spoofed the CEO. I'll actually say that in larger companies, fraudulent emails supposedly from your boss or from your boss's boss or from the CEO asking you to do something is also a very known fraud. It's more of a corporate fraud than a personal one, but yeah, that seems to happen in anything where you don't really know personally the people who are asking you to do something. So you have to be very, very careful about that.
But you know what, David? I'll tell you one more thing real quick. We were on a phone call with somebody we know well. Um, we had a conversation with him, and he said, I'm going to send you some info. We talked about something we were going to do together, and he said, let me send you some information about that when we get off the phone. We got off the phone. A few minutes later, I got an email from this person, and it said, click here to see my documents. And that was one I clicked on because we had just gotten off the phone with
Of
this
course,
person.
it was expected. I probably
It
would
was
do it too.
expected. We knew the person I was getting it from. He had been hacked in the few minutes. His email had been hacked in the few minutes. I don't know how they knew to send it to us or if it just got sent out to everybody. Thankfully, I realized it almost immediately. Like you said, we went on, changed passwords, called the bank, etc. Everything was fine. But even when you think you're getting something nowadays, clicking on a link is so frightening. It's just ridiculous. I mean, that was a perfect example of I had no reason to be suspicious at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I probably would have clicked on it too.
Yeah.
It just shows that this can happen to anybody and everybody.
Anybody. Yeah. Yep. Well,
And
thank you.
Dave,
This was excellent. Really good.
All right.
David, just
Well,
David, I
sorry.
just had a comment. Being in the Medicare business, Medicare fraud is just rampant, and I guess two comments. One is, um, uh, unless you have it, unless you made the appointment with a Social Security rep, say you want to sign up for that, or maybe even related to Medicare, you're never going to get a call from Social Security or Medicare. Number one, and so therefore don't share any personal information. But number two, check your statements. Um, my wife just checked her statement, and there's a rampant fraud going on with durable medical equipment, things like catheters. She was billed for the last quarter for catheters that were allegedly, prescribed by her. So she actually called Medicare and reported it, and they were aware of it. And she called our supplemental company and told them that it was a fraudulent, and they said, "Good, we've heard of this company, so we're not going to pay it." So it didn't directly affect us. It was never going to come out of our pocket, but those things are going to happen, and they take advantage of people's fact that maybe they don't check their statements, which is pretty common and not necessarily bad in and of itself, but because it goes undetected, it just contributes to a huge problem in with Medicare fraud. So just want to make people aware of that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, Mark. I've heard of that fraud as well. Um, Slight aside, I go to a new doctor and the new doctor asks me to fill out the information and they're always asking me for my social security number and I can tell you I never provide it. They have never yet asked me or told me, oh, we can't see you because you're not providing your social security number. But I feel like, why does my doctor need my social security number? And it's just someplace else where it's going to be where it could get stolen.
Good point.
And I'll say the same thing about so if somebody legitimately needs your date of birth, sure, okay, provide it. Does my social media account need my actual date of birth? So other people can tell me happy birthday? No. I actually lie on date of birth most of the time, unless they legitimately need to know my exact date of birth.
I actually joke with people in Medicare because I say Medicare is the only business where I can ask women how old they are and I don't get slapped.
Uh, well, they might be lying though. Um,
I still don't get slapped.
all right. I think on that note, we will call it a day. And thank you, everybody. And I'd be happy to answer later questions if you want to send me an email or you had any concerns. But other than that, I wish you a good day.